So there's a misconception that if you're single, you are incomplete, perhaps damaged, salvaged, and you won't be happy until you find your one. And that is not true. That is bullshit. It is a message that has been fed to us by media and advertising. The truth is, when you're single, you have the richest soil for growth. That's why I created this podcast. And unlike other podcasts, this one is host-driven, not guest-driven. That means I will be rotating health and wellness experts 3 times a week to give you the giant box of wellness crayons, not just the primary colors, so you can start building a meaningful life. It's time to give singlehood a cape. So today's host, Lindsay Burke, she and I go way back when I was working in addiction, residential, Malibu, driving my little motorcycle on PCH to help people with addiction, and she was on my team. I'm so happy that she is a part of this rotating hosts and experts for this podcast. Lindsay Burke is the founder of Lift Therapy, and she's a licensed therapist, behavior interventionist, coach, martial artist, yes, martial artist, a wife, a parent, and expert consultant on attachment, narcissism, and toxic relationships, as well as early childhood development. Yes, she does everything. And she believes that human connection is the best medicine and is committed to helping people heal by helping them develop healthy attachments with others. Her mission is to enhance the field of mental health by making support and resources more accessible to you in the form of psychoeducation, supportive programming, and individual therapy. Lindsay has served as a host for the Disney Plus show Reconnect and as an advisor and expert writer for various newspapers, podcasts, and radio shows such as the Chicago Tribune, Relation Up, P Therapy, Life and Style Magazine, Pop Sugar, and on and on and on. She is very talented. She's a powerful catalyst, and I hope you enjoy. Well, I know you're going to enjoy and get so much out of her episode today.
Hey, everybody. Today, I have the absolute privilege of interviewing a powerhouse of a woman that I am lucky to call a friend, Gina Naranjo. Gina is the founder of the natural hair care line Cheeky Curls that provides healthy and effective products to those with waves and curls, which was born out of her own battle with rheumatoid arthritis and an inability to use most, even high-end hair care products without having a painful and inflammatory response in her own body. And so for Gina, this has become more than just a hair care business. Her ultimate hope is to inspire a life of overall wellness inside and out. In addition to all of that, she is a successful television producer, a wife, an incredible mom of 2. And this woman knows all about wearing many, many hats, as well as the maturity it takes to evolve into these extremely different roles and demanding roles. And let's just say stuff that's not typically taught in schools. So today we are lucky to lean on some of the wisdom you've gained from quite literally jumping into the deep end in many aspects of your life and learning how to swim on your own. So thank you, Gina, so much for taking the time to be on our show today.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I'm so happy to chat with you today.
Oh, this is awesome because you really have experience in all the different corners of the challenges of life between wifing and momming and the home life, the dog momming, but also running a business, but also working in a really demanding industry and managing the demands of both of those responsibilities. And I'm sure you feel tugged in many directions, your heart tugged in many directions, and somehow have managed to stay passionate, to stay driven. Anyone who's owned a business also really understands the ups and downs, and there are periods of time when you aren't experiencing the wins. So today I really want to dive into your 5 top golden nuggets that you would share, these nuggets of wisdom that you've kind of picked up along the way over the last decade that you wish you could give, to that younger self, that 22-year-old, the 25-year-old, even 35-year-old version of yourself, about where you would start and some of those things that you've kind of picked up along the way that both qualities in yourself, but also the kind of resourcing that you need in order to sustain these roles.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little more about some of this?
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it really, really well, like the challenges throughout each phase of my life, because it's not like you leave one, I call it like season of life and then you enter another and it's so much easier. There's still the challenges. They're just different. And, yeah. And I think we spend a lot of time trying to figure it out, trying to do it perfectly. And there's no real way to do it perfectly. You don't know, you've never been 25 and then 30 and then 35 and 40 and 45, and it goes on and on and on. And so the seasons of life, I think, number one, just giving up that idea of perfection. And that for me has been really hard because I want it all to be perfect. I want, and I do the checking of the boxes constantly. I still do that. I'm trying to stop, but I still do that today. But it's,
and even the boxes, you think about what those boxes are, and you're looking at this idea of maybe something someone else has done, who even creates those boxes?
Yep.
We kind of develop these and manifest these in our own ways, which are great aspirations to have. And at the same time, sometimes that aspiration doesn't fit your life or your needs or your resources.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I think you bring up a really, really good point about you also start looking at other people's lives and how perfect it is, right? And social media definitely does that today, where it makes us think everything is this filtered, perfect life and happy and smiling and everything's good to go and everyone has all the fancy things.
Easy, clean and shiny.
Yeah, yeah. So even if
because it's so good right here.
yeah, and even if your boxes are like you've checked all your boxes, then you suddenly start adding more boxes because you're like, oh, well, that person has that, or I never thought about that. And sometimes it is inspiring. Don't get me wrong; you should get inspired by things that do personally inspire you. But there's the rat race of constantly just chasing these things, and so that goes back to my notion of like perfection. Of it's not always going to be perfect. You are going to get to that point that you wanted to get to, and it may not even be what you wanted anymore, or it may not even feel like what you thought it would feel like, and that's okay. That's totally okay. So I think,
where was that fine line for you? How did you move from and kind of discern from, I have to have it this way, or I'm not ready, or I can't put it out there yet, or I can't do it yet, to, I don't even want to say good enough, but meeting a standard that still is high and still, is the degree to which you feel like represents you and stands out and is worthy of that time and energy, and is something that, for me, like it's a service I provide. For you, it's a product you provide. But saying, I think this can still benefit from someone or benefit someone. It's not perfect. What's helped you move from that perfectionism and be able to stay productive and put things out there even when you're not totally satisfied?
I think it's, just learning about how to get to that next step. And I was like I just couldn't move. I was like, and sometimes in quicksand, like feeling like I was like just going under because I was waiting for everything to be perfect. I was waiting to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and sometimes that just doesn't happen, and you either keep moving or you don't. And I wanted to keep moving. So even when I started Cheeky Curls, it's like I wanted perfect packaging. I wanted perfect pictures. I wanted, just everything to just be just 100%, to, just quality, quality, quality. And there was a time where I had to say, okay, it's 95% there. I would need probably about $25,000 to get it to the 100%, what I deemed 100%. And
Right.
then I just had to say, okay, well, either I wait a year to, raise that $100,000, or sorry, $25,000 or whatever it was. Or I just move forward and I put my products out there and I keep moving. And that's what I've kept doing. I keep moving. Even when it doesn't feel comfortable. Yeah. There's, and I still struggle to this day. I'm like, it doesn't even just start and stop with business, right? For me in my personal life, we moved into a brand new house, and it was like all of our stuff from our last place just didn't fit into this new house. It didn't go well. The styles were different. It didn't work. So we would need to furnish almost the whole house again. And it was part of me having to leave behind the idea of moving into this beautiful new home that looked like the models. No, it wasn't going to be that. We had to wait to be able to furnish the house. I had to be okay with moving into a house that would sit for a year without being completed. That's just what it was. And I could either sulk in that, or I could let it bother me, or I could still find the beauty in, oh my God, we bought our first home to live in, and we, what a blessing that is. And the furniture will come, and the landscaping will come, and all of that. It wasn't perfect when we moved in. I think we moved in, we were still dealing with like COVID, like the after effects of COVID. And so we moved in and we felt horrible. And it's just the house, there were like all these things we weren't prepared for. And it wasn't a perfect situation. It wasn't what you see, on Instagram or in the photos or videos.
They get the keys, they move in, and everything's already set up. And
but it was still like such an amazing time for us. And, the idea of perfection, I've just had to let go so many times. And I wish I could have told my 25-year-old self, like, just lean in, just let go of the idea of perfection and just go for it. And that would have saved me a lot of time on things, I think, although I still think there's no mistakes. So, it's just part of my journey in learning that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it's so huge. I mean, you actually really just named the duality of, or the need for this duality of radical acceptance, which is essentially, I'm still in the process, which is exactly where I need to be. And I mean, even just now, you mentioned the idea of there are no mistakes. Part of the process is actually the fact that because you're experiencing the now, you're going to have, experiences and mistakes and issues and incidents and learning experiences that go up, that come up, that are actually going to fuel and feed you with new information that will make the outcome better than you might even be able to anticipate. You're going to learn from that. It's going to inform that future aspiration that you have, that future goal.
Exactly.
For the better. So there's an element of actually moving away from not just having that ambition, but instead of valuing that end result, really leaning into it and appreciating the value of the here and now and the incompleteness of that. So really sitting in the process and that being a part of an accepted, radically accepted part of life is the incomplete, because it's like running a marathon. Just as soon as you hit mile, 14, you're looking at mile 15, and you hit mile 15 and you're looking at 16, there's always going to be that ambition. So while holding space for that ambition for something else, that doesn't mean mile 14 is valued less.
Right. I think there is a sense of control too, of wanting to, if I can just do X, Y, and Z, I can make it perfect. I just need that little bit more. I just, if I tweak the colors, if I, work more hours, and sometimes it's just out of our control, and either you give into, being okay with that and still moving forward. And that was always my goal. Move forward. How do I move forward? And
I can have something now, and I can be continuing to work on bettering that product or bettering for others at the same time as giving them what I already have now, because I know that it still adds value.
Exactly.
And owning that. That's so huge. So really being able to keep moving. How can I move the dial even a little bit, even if it's not this? That's a great kind of phrase.
Yeah, because I think we have these ideas in our head. At least I do. We have these ideas in our head of what it should look like, what it should be, what it should feel like. And then when the reality, we're there and it doesn't look or feel like we we put in our heads to think that then it's less than, or then it's not what it should have been. And it's like, no, it's exactly what it should have been. And it's no less, it's no more. It is exactly what it was supposed to be. And I think I've gotten really, really comfortable with that aspect of my life. Like everything that has happened, everything that, where I'm at, everything is where it is supposed to be. And when I think I kind of looked at it that way, where I turned that idea around. Like, it's not a loss of perfection. It's not less than. It's actually exactly where I'm supposed to be, which is perfect in itself, if that makes sense.
Or even the uncomfortable aspect of sitting where I'm at right now is informing me. And it's more important for me to address this as opposed to feeling less than because I'm not out there. Being able to focus that energy on the here and now. Well, I don't know about you. I'm pretty sure you've experienced this, but I'm sure many of our listeners have had that experience where you look back. I think about, like ex-boyfriends at the time was like, I'm going to marry them and they're it for me. And it's my dream relationship and we're going to move here and we're going to do this. And now I'm like, God, that did not work out. Same with a few business ventures. I'm like, oh my God, I was going to start a whole facility. I'm like, thank God, how would I do that?
That is so true, Lindsay. Like,
you look back and that idea of perfection, I don't even want that anymore.
I don't know. I mean, it may sound very juju, but like, I think there are, the universe does step in at times and help to guide us on where we are and aren't supposed to be. Again, I don't think there's any mistakes ever. So yeah, that's what I would definitely start off there with my 25-year-old self.
Yeah. It can't be perfect. It can't be perfect. What else comes up? What else has kind of come up over the years for you that, God, you wish you knew?
Yeah, I think it's being honest with myself about what it is I really, really want, and not what other people think I should want, or, trying to give in to other people's expectations of me and who I am. My mom said to me the other day, she said, why don't you do events? You're so good at it. All of the parties you throw, they're so great. You would be amazing. You'd be so successful at events. And I said, first of all, I have way too much on my plate. So no, I'm not adding another business, another side hustle, another job to my plate.
Sure.
But also, I think I just internally know what drives me. And that doesn't mean that everybody else on the outside knows what drives me. So I really have to listen and be honest with myself about what it is that I want. And even if other people aren't on board with that, even if they don't sign off on it, they don't understand, they don't agree. It's really just, I think, in essence, trusting myself. And I have not been able to do that until I would say most recently, really just listening to those things. And I think I got there because of all of the things that started to happen once I did listen to myself. My husband and I talked for years about where we should buy a house. And I was very adamant about the area where we should buy. And he was kind of against it. And we did the dance for a couple of years, actually. And ultimately, it's where we ended up. And now he'll listen to this and he'll listen to this and laugh because he's like, she's pointing out that she was right.
That's right. You hear that, buddy? Listen to your wives.
Yeah. I love that headline.
But those gut instincts where something just feels right. There's something, and I mean, even when I did a lot of perpetrator behavior, research and teachings, all of that, we've worked with profilers now who've been able to do a lot of research around that gut instinct. And when we actually see the evidence that it isn't just a gut instinct, it isn't just divine intervention. There are a lot of messages coming in that sometimes we can't always cognitively put our finger on and say, these are all the statistics that my body and my brain is picking up to kind of make this decision. Later, now we know that it is informed by your world and your environment and this wisdom is real experiences that your body is internalizing and saying, hey, trying to hit you over the head here. You might not understand why, but this is right for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the example that I always give all the time, because it was, to me, it was a moment where it kind of solidified that mentally, like, you're strong, like you create your realities, and the things you think on, the things you speak on, you can make happen. And I know that gets into like a whole deal of like manifestation, and I totally believe in all of that. But the example that was very strong for me was when I think I was about 27, and it was my birthday. They had a cake for me at work, and I blew out the candle, and everyone says, "Oh, what did you wish for?" And I said, "Oh, I wish for my husband." And I meant it. I meant it.
I'm done with dating.
I was like, I wish for my husband. And we went out, coworkers and we went out and we partied and had a great young time. But I was very real and honest about what it was that I wanted at that time. And that was December 22nd. And I met my husband online January 1st. And so,
gosh, that's so crazy.
And our very first date, we talked about what it is that you want. And he said, I'd like a serious relationship. I'd like a wife. And he said, what are you looking for? And I said, I would very much like a husband and a family, and blah, 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 blah. And, we were very just upfront.
You're saying that too, that you were able to, I think there's a point of shame around that still for people and this idea of desperation, or that you would want a relationship. You don't feel enough by yourself. And you can feel enough by yourself and at the same time be like, yo, we're social species. I can do it by myself. I don't want to do it by myself. I want this. I want this collaboration, this partnership, this life witness to share these experiences with and to build a life with. So, and you both were in that place to say, that's the starting place. Like, what's the point of this if you're not, your end goal isn't wanting to, be in a long-term relationship. So you were willing to say that in person.
I think you waste time if you're sitting there just giving lip service and just being like, yeah, it's casual, when inside you really are like, no, I want a relationship. Like, I'm tired of dating. That's why I wholeheartedly believe in being honest with yourself and being honest with others, because why waste time? Why not be true to yourself? If there's something you really, really want, go for it. I think that's in relationships, and that's in business, and that's just in life in general. Life is short. Why sit around pretending or not being really truthful with yourself when it's still in here? You still know what it is you want. You just have to get it out and go for it. And I think at certain points in my life, I had looked at what people thought of me and what I should do. And I was like, oh yeah, that's maybe what I should do. And it also takes time, because I don't know if I was really super clear
for that. Sometimes we're not clear. Yeah, that's true. Where, sometimes you're not clear about what you want, and that's okay too, to try on different things and to experiment with different things. But deep down, I think when we, again, instead of scrolling Instagram and, and looking at what do I want, to be able to bring it inward and really listen to yourself. Even in my sessions, when clients are really feeling lost, we go back to that young version of ourselves. We go back to that 5-year-old and say, what did she like? Who was she? Who was he? Who was that person? Who are you at your core when all of the other stuff is stripped away? I think they know. What would that person say that they deeply want? What do they enjoy doing? What are their hobbies? And I remember getting to a point in my own life when, in the attempt to be accommodating and to be social and friendly and to kind of meet some of those needs, and having moved so many times, I was just constantly trying to fit into the different populations that I happen to be in, in each new situation, and to be around others. But sure, I'm a beer drinker. Oh, I love wine. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm totally into the sport. And realizing now that isolation of realizing I'm surrounded by this community of people that I actually have nothing in common with, or I don't share the values. I don't share the interests. And now I have to untangle myself from, who am I in this, and rebuild, as opposed to, and some of that comes from trauma and upbringing and just life circumstances and being adaptable. And there were also a lot of things that I tried on that was like, where was this my whole life? So some of those experiences were great.
But that goes to the point too, that what you want one day and who, that changes. Yes, it totally evolves. And as a single person, without kids, and I had my first son, pretty young. So I've been a mom since 20 years old. And so that's always been part of who I am as an adult. But even then at 30, 35, 37, like it's all different. What I want changes. Who I am changes throughout. It should change. If I am the same person today that I was at 22, that would be a problem. But with those things come wanting different things and morphing into an older, more wise person. But also just your priorities change, and the things that you value change, and that's okay. That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's one thing that people get stuck up on too, is, well, I'm known for my identity is this. They get stuck. It took me a long time even to shed. I'm a martial artist. I've been this for a long time, and to really accept that I don't want that anymore. Yeah. I'm so burnt out on training, and I remember going to a jiu-jitsu class and just, I didn't want to be there. And that just really came up against this identity that I developed, that was my whole life and my world. And I still obviously appreciate it. And I miss some aspects of it now and may get back into it later. But at that point in my life, that was over. So yeah, that permission also to evolve and to change your mind, which can disrupt relationships, which can be a challenge when you've been in a certain role in certain relationships in your life, and you've had a certain position or you've had a certain lifestyle. And when you try to shift, you're up against sometimes the world around you wanting to keep you as that version of yourself too. And being able to be honest with yourself in those moments and say that I don't want that anymore. I don't value that anymore. This is where I'd like to spend my time.
That's the that's the harder part, I think, is being honest with yourself and saying, I've outgrown that, or that's no longer a priority for me, or because it feels a little bit like we're cheating on ourselves. Like, oh, you've changed. Yeah.
Or you're letting somebody down, or you're, or that you're discrediting or undervaluing that stage of your life in some kind of way, that you're saying that was bad. It's not necessarily bad. It's just that what you need or what you want now.
Yeah. I had a moment with a friend, and we're still very good friends. But a moment where when we first met, we were both single moms, and, we really shared that bond in raising our kids and that struggle and what that was. And, then when I met my husband, and, I don't know if we were married yet. I think we were living together. And yes, it's easier when you have a second person, and a support system now. And I remember hearing through the grapevine how she thought that I had changed. She told a mutual friend, Gina's really changed. And, now that, she's with Daryl, she's not the same. And she doesn't understand things that I'm still struggling with as a single mom. And I think at first it really hurt my feelings, because the struggle of being a single mom will never be forgotten. That's always going to be there with me.
PTSD, I'm sure, embedded deeply.
Very much so.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that that's where I needed to stay. And that is who I was going to be the entirety of my life. Nor was that where I wanted to stay. Now, don't get me wrong. I was a proud single mom. I went to college. I raised my son very well. He's such a strong and smart, and caring, man now. And I'm very proud of the the work I've done and the life I've lived. But I needed to move on from that. That was never going to be the totality of who I was. And I wasn't mad that she said it. I think I was just a little bit hurt by it. But I also had to realize that that was more of where she was. It said more about where she was than it said about where I was, or, and I think
and fears. You hear the fears that come up of, being left behind or being not understood anymore.
Right.
Having someone to relate to your struggle.
Right. And I got it. And I think there was a part of me, because this was quite a while ago, where a part of me was wanting to prove like I'm still that person. I'm still the same old person. And it's like, well, I understand. I probably have changed, because this isn't 5 years ago. But, I think as we have both gotten older, we've actually started to change together, because then she got married, and our lives we've still maintained a very, very strong friendship. One that, I really value. But I think there are those times where sometimes the friendships don't make it through the changes that happen, and people evolving, and it's just, again, no mistakes. Yeah. So I think the friends that end up sticking around in your circle, that probably tends to get a little bit smaller as you get older. Those are like your real ones. Like they're like your keys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or again, I say this even about partnerships. Some relationships, they really do expire. And I've even said, again, like you said, with this friendship, that friendship isn't just a linear experience either, that a lot of the ones that really last over the decades are the ones that allow for that wave that is closeness and then separation during the stages of life where you don't relate, and that closeness, and that the love can sustain, but sometimes the ability to support one another and the ability to relate to one another can, that can, evolve and change and have its ebbs and flows. And some of that's okay. And then some truly they were just what you needed during that season of your life. And it's okay for that season to end. Yeah. And there doesn't have to be, there can be some grief around that and sadness. You can't force it. I think anybody knows when you try to force those relationships, that doesn't go well either. And sometimes people aren't just meant to evolve with us yet, or if the relationship does resume later, it will do so naturally, because your stages of life have kind of intertwined again, and that season has overlapped again. Yeah. So I think that's important too, is some of the fears of when you're trying to trust yourself and listen to yourself and evolve and move forward into the growth that needs to take place in order to mature and reach some of the goals that you have. It means disappointing people, or people not understanding, people not being able to support you, people not being able to come along on that ride with you for a little while. And that's part of the heartache, and it's important to normalize that. Yeah. To let that be okay instead of resisting it, to grieve it, to acknowledge it, and accept that as kind of a natural part of the process.
Yeah, I agree. There's been some friendships that have ended over the years, and I had to accept that really was what it was supposed to be. They had served their purpose in terms of the, whatever it was, whether it was, my husband likes to say, it's like a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And there are friends I've had for many, many years, since, 4th, 5th grade. And then, new people that, have came into our lives too. And so, it is, I think, the natural order of things. It's painful at times though, for sure.
Yeah. And it's really hard to, in a way, you have to kind of choose between your integrity and your own personal needs, and trying to hold on to something that just actually isn't there.
Yeah.
It's just not there. Yeah. Oh, that's so big. That's really, really big. All right. Well, hit me with number 3. What's number 3 as far as?
Number 3. Oh, this is one I really struggle with. I don't know why I struggle with this, but it is.
That you're not alone.
Yes, it is very important. it's being your own cheerleader. It's
Ooh.
really showing up for you and just speaking on all of your greatness and just, you know, really giving you your own flowers. And
Oh, this ties right in with the last one too. Oh, that's a good one. That hits me right in the gut,
it's
Gina.
hard.
That's one of my hardest. Yes.
I mean, even you were like, oh, send us a bio. And I'm like, oh, I have one on my website that doesn't really relate, but um, it's hard for me to speak about my accomplishments or to say this is the great things that I'm doing, even though I feel really good about what I'm doing. But it's still hard for me to say it out loud to people without feeling like I'm boasting or feeling I'm like I shouldn't. I don't know why. But I also have seen in my life where when I do those things, when I show up for myself, when I do allow myself to boast, so to speak, about my accomplishments, I'm like, that actually feels really good. And it's not something I should shy away from. It gets hard sometimes, but it's getting more and more comfortable for me. I definitely could not do this in my 20s. Definitely. And I think it may be, I mean, you touched on something earlier when you said it, you know, it comes from generational trauma and things like that, where there's the whole,
The culture
oh
of being a
yeah,
woman and being humble and being modest
yeah.
and
Or
yes, which I think there's
the idea of,
value in.
yeah. And the idea of you think you're better than, you think you're better than us.
Right.
You think you know everything. And it's like, no, no, no. I really don't. I'm happy with the things that I've done. And like, I want to share some information or, you know, but culturally, yes, it comes from there, I think, and why I've struggled with that. But I do think it's very, very important. And I do get inspired by people I see online, including you, when you post things about, you know, stuff that you're doing and initiatives you're taking and, you know, being on the forefront of things and really just, you know, owning that. And I think that's really, really important. Show up for yourself, be your cheerleader, you know, others will follow it. The real people that are supposed to will follow. And, I think it's important moving forward.
Yeah, well, and showing people how you can serve them. How this is what I have to offer you. This is who I am and what I have to offer you.
Yeah.
And I can't help you if you don't know about it.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, when we can talk about it from a sales and marketing perspective, but the reality is we're a social species and the whole idea of the way we work and think is collectivistic. It's just that we have such diverse skills and that we can provide for one another. But when there's that element of shame or that element of keeping yourself small, fewer people are also going to have access to you. So, but no one's going to do that for you. And you learn over time that you have to be the one to say, I can help your hair. It's a disaster. It's a disaster, but I have tools. Oh, I have something that's not going to cause an allergic reaction. Can I show you? Look how I do mine.
Right.
You know, to be able to say, you know, it's not just I'm awesome and I have the best thing.
Right.
If there's someone else out there that's better, you know, then you will want to know what their formula is. But
yeah, and that's
just I can help you, and I'm proud of this because it's helped me.
Yep.
And being able to, where would you say in your life you can actively remember, or even like a period in life where you can actively remember it holding you back, and then when you made that shift of realizing nobody's going to do this for me, I've got to be the one to speak up, and you felt that noticeable difference?
You know, it was with the creation of Cheeky Curls, with building the hair care line and just really leaning into, I have to show up. People want to see the creator of this product. They want to hear from the creator of this product. It's a natural product. It's real. Like I, you know, was touting, my whole family uses it. And on social media, I remember the social media assistant that I had that was, you know, posting everything. And she's like, I need to hear your words on here. I need you to get you on video. I need to really promote you because those are the posts that do best. Those are the ones that get the most views and get the most likes. And
you have the why. You
yeah,
have the reason why
yeah,
you did it.
yeah.
Which is what all of your followers and the customers of your product are going to relate to.
Instinctually, I'm very shy. But then on the other level is the idea of, well, I think initially it was that people don't expect this from me. And by people, I mean the friends and family that knew me from my production work, from my career in television production. And it was
you behind the scenes.
Yes. I'm working behind the scenes. They're going to judge me. How dare I step out and create something on my own? But it was that lesson of I can do it. I should do it. And it's actually making a difference when I do it. So, it's one of the things. What was that?
Yeah. They want to see you.
I mean, I'll show up.
You're here today. You're here today, woman.
I'll always show up for you, Lindsay. But it's, and through the process, I've gotten more and more comfortable with saying, I'm here. I'm cheerleading for me and got my pom-poms and I'm ready. That's becoming more and more natural where at first it wasn't. And I think, if you can get there and really just, it's also a part of just like self-love, like saying like, I'm amazing and, it not being a bad thing. I'm doing good things and it not feeling like, oh, that's, I shouldn't say that,
worthy.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit of that, that ability of taking up space. I'm allowed to take up space here. That there's no, we very easily put other people up on pedestals or think that someone else is more deserving for some reason to take up this amount of space on the internet, this amount of space on podcasts, or this amount of space, in this room right now. And to say, hey, we're all, waking up the same way, going to bed the same way. We're all, that I'm allowed to show up here and I hold value and I can, I'm actually doing a disservice by not showing people who I am or what.
I love that you said that because I think I did try to make myself small. I'm naturally a small person, right? Like I'm very small in stature. I'm a tiny little person.
The grass is always greener on the other side. I'm like an Amazon. You can't tell in videos, but I am like an Amazon woman. My whole life was like, oh, be petite, and then, but you'd internalize that, right?
I mean,
I've heard times you start to internalize that a little bit.
Maybe, but I often did just shy away from a seat at the table. I remember literally being in a meeting when I worked in production, and there was this massive conference room table, and I remember, just shying away over to the side, and somebody saying to me, "Oh no, you sit at the table, like sit at the table, like that seat is for you," and I was like, "Oh." Okay. But I felt like it wasn't a place for me. That's happened on set many a times too, where I feel like I just need to kind of, just make sure stuff is not going awry. And then people will say to me, "Oh, no, you're right here. Like you're in the forefront."
You need to be in the front.
Yes. And I'm, And it's taken me a while to get comfortable with that, but I'm there, and I think that just happens over time. But really being cognizant of, not making yourself small. And you do deserve a seat at the table. And there is enough space.
Yeah, and very much, especially in production. I'm not sure what your experience has been like, but as far as what I know of it, it's still very much a man's world. And, my own experience with martial arts and being in leadership positions and being even a taller woman, the idea of being a woman, I would literally slump, I'd like slump down in my chair. I would spread my legs so I could like just be a little shorter, there's an element of that pressure to, to even be a little smaller and to adapt to the room and not take up too much space. So it took you a little while to enter that space of I'm actually the boss here and I'm allowed to make some noise and and it's adding to the success here. It's adding to the value that's being created in this room, and being able to take credit for that as well, and to cheer yourself. Well, and you even saying cheerleader too, that even made me think of the idea of not everyone, again, like what we were saying, is going to be able to understand what your aspirations are and understand your levels of ambition, understand why you're putting in the late hours and the long hours and choosing some of the decisions you're making that are hard, when others would be like, yeah, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm not doing that. That's way too hard. Or it's really hard when you don't have those cheerleaders to say, keep going, or you don't see that light at the end of the tunnel yet. And sometimes you have to be that for yourself as well.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000.
Celebrate those successes that no one else sees.
Yeah.
You have to be. I even say some of my best work is not my degrees. It's not my medals. It's not, and it's stuff that people thought it was a milestone with one of my clients while eating cheeseburgers on the side of the street that no one would know about. Was just one of my proudest moments. But to be that person when no one else is able to be that cheerleader for you, or can't even see what you're doing.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, for sure. It's hard because sometimes it's a lonely road, especially if you don't have a co-founder, if you don't have a big team. It can be very lonely. So to keep going on the times where, it doesn't look like there's success nearby, but instinctually you're like, this is my journey. This is where I should be. This is where I want to be. And I do see success. It's not tomorrow, but maybe it's the next day, and maybe it's the next day. And you have to be your own cheerleader and keep, rah-rahing yourself on and just, pushing through that. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other way, because if you're waiting for other people to give you that validation, or to, on the day in and day out of the hardships with being an entrepreneur, or just in general, you're not going to get it. You're going to be disappointed by the people that don't show up, or the people that they don't get what you're doing. So yeah, it really does fall on you, or fall on me to show up for me and to be my cheerleader. Yeah.
To stay excited and encouraged, and to, again, back to your first point of being in the moment and living in the process of celebrating your wins too. And yes, to be able to say, this is so cool. I'm not where I want to be, but this paid off. These products were made. This shipping label got made. This, the small wins. I'm doing all right. I did good.
Yep. And
opportunity to be excited about that.
Yeah. And I tend to be, I don't know, I think in general, women are very hard on themselves. I don't know. That's very much a generalization. So forgive me, but I myself am very,
as a therapist,
yeah,
I'll confirm. I think everybody's really hard on themselves, but there's also definitely a microscope.
Yes.
That women have on themselves. I think because of the different roles that we
Yep.
play.
Yep. And I'm extremely, extremely hard on myself. And even, with the packaging, when I first created the packaging for Cheeky Curls, I wanted it 1,000% perfect. And it went out not perfect, but, I had that same packaging, I want to say, for maybe the first 3 years. And then I switched it. And it was only due to the learnings of the first packaging, feedback from people. And by the way, we got great reviews about our packaging. If you go online and you look at our reviews, everyone talks about how beautiful the packaging has been from day one. Yes. There was some learnings I got from the first round. And so 3 years in, I switched the packaging up, and I couldn't have gotten that just right out the gate. It just was part of the process, and it turned out to be fine.
It was better.
Yeah.
The second time around, because you were able to get that feedback about what client, and again, like we were saying, sometimes it ends up being something better than you would have even planned for, because you could have done that perfect packaging, and that still wouldn't necessarily have fit your client's needs.
Exactly.
And you got the feedback about, that's such a lesson.
Yep.
So even your perfect might not be the perfect that's really needed.
Oh, 1,000%. But I am not a fortune teller.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving, and that's letting go of the sense of control, right? Like if I put perfect, beautiful packaging out there, it will do amazing and everybody will love it and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's not necessarily right, because my idea of perfect packaging isn't what the retailers deem perfect. It's not, I mean, there's always the trends that come and go, and, you know, and what if they love the packaging, but they hate the actual product, you know, itself, which thankfully the product itself was great. Everybody raves about the product itself and the packaging too. We you know, again, we got great reviews on the packaging, but it was just little learnings and tweaks here and there. And, you know, it's part of the process.
And, you know, I mean, woman, we're talking on a show called Single on Purpose. I mean, we can talk about the product being a product, and we can also talk about ourselves. What a life lesson, though, to say, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be all the way done yet. I don't have to be, you know, meeting all of these criteria in order to be ready to date again either. I don't have to be meeting all these criteria to be exactly what someone else is needing right now.
Yeah, the checking of the boxes.
Looking for.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't have to be all those things. And it's really, you know, being able to say I'm worthy, and so big.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to where are we at? Number 4.
So this kind of goes back to, I think it's a little bit about being honest with yourself, but it's also being fearless. So the idea of scaring yourself basically into, if I do this, what if this happens? Or, you know, really not setting yourself up for failure, but just, you know, setting yourself up so that you can't make a move. My whole thing is to keep moving, and to, you know, there are times where you need to be still. Don't get me wrong. Motherhood, when I first had my second kid, my first and second. And talk about being fearful. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So I think losing that fear, just like letting it go, just saying like, I'm okay with whatever happens and where I am, and, you know, being fearless in every aspect. Date. Yes. Go out there and date. Just because you had a bad situation before, or relationship ended, you know, traumatically, maybe take a beat, but, you know, get back out there and not be so fearful. Or with a career, if you started, you know, something and it didn't go well, try a new job. If you're not,
courage isn't the absence of fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Courage isn't, and bravery. People think, oh, you're so brave. You weren't afraid. I was like, I was fucking terrified. I had no idea how this was going to go down. I didn't have a plan. Like, it's okay to be terrified and also to try and to fall on your face. I love that. You cannot wait till you're ready.
Yeah. I mean,
you're not stretching yourself.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Fear creeps in. It creeps in all the time. But if you don't take the leap in any way, shape, or form, then fear has won. And you'll never know what could have been. You know, I had thought of an example I wanted to talk about, but I lost it. Okay.
Well, and I mean, it's just making me think about, I mean, if you are a listener right now, what are some of those things that that tickled your fancy, that you've flirted with and you've thought about, and that you've been afraid to talk about or to share with anybody that you want, that's an aspiration, and, you know, how could I make this jump? How could I just take the first step in doing something in that direction, even if it's small? But sometimes it really does mean jumping off a cliff and just building the parachute on the way down. And what if I were to do that and fail, and giving myself permission to fail, just accepting that might be an inevitable aspect of the process. But right now, what are some of those things that are just in there deep in your gut that you know you want, but you've been afraid? That's usually the direction you need to head. And there's a difference between being fearful because something isn't in line, with what you want or need. But I think everybody can relate to that thing that wouldn't it be cool if, but, and then they have all of those buts there. I think you're naming it, that there's not been one thing that I'm proud of now in hindsight that didn't require me to jump off the cliff way before I was ready, the way before I had a full plan in place. And that, and usually ended up with me falling on my face and embarrassing myself that way. But what's funny, you know what? I heard something the other day. Oh, I cannot say his name. This is embarrassing. I should be able to say it. I'm gonna have to add it later. It is the husband of, he's a marathon and like super marathon runner, husband of the woman who created Spanx. I absolutely love him because he was talking about one time when he was going to have to speak in public and he was mortified. He was terrified of public speaking and literally peed himself before he got on stage, was covered in pee. And he was like, I can't go out there. And they're like, you have to. There's a huge audience. They're ready to listen to it. Literally pushed him on the stage and he gave a speech and people laughed at him. He buckled, didn't, know what to say. It was a horrible, horrible experience. Fell on his face. He was totally humiliated and embarrassed, flopped the whole thing. But here he is now, with millions of followers, multiple businesses, known worldwide. And he was sitting in this group of people and he's like, do any of you guys even know about that? Nobody had even heard that story. Nobody even knew about that. Even if they had, everybody could laugh about it. It's in hindsight. Yeah. He's made a name for himself, but you have to here's this big, this big public figure now. No one even knows about that situation. And I think that's usually what we do is we play up these experiences in our head and how embarrassing it's going to be, humiliating it's going to be, how horrible we're going to fail. And so it stops us, these fears of that being the end. And he's like, even if that worst thing happens, it's not going to be the end unless you die. Which at that point,
it doesn't matter then. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But yeah, I love that.
I think it held me back quite a bit in the past, being fearful of things to the point where I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't move on it. And, now it also didn't ever stop that want or desire in me for those particular things. It just kind of pushed them out. So, and maybe that's good because maybe I wasn't ready, with in being an entrepreneur, you have to just balls to the wall and just go. You just have to do it. And so I think in time it came when it was supposed to. But I definitely would tell my younger self to not fear so much. And that was ingrained in me as a very small child. The little moments of don't do this because you'll get in trouble this way. Or, if you try to do these things, this is what's going to happen. You don't want that to happen, do you? And it made me start to really doubt, oh, I don't want those things to happen. And then as an adult, stopping and thinking, oh, well, if I do that, is this going to be harmful? How deep is that going to cut? And sometimes it's maybe it'll cut or maybe it won't. Let's see. And I think I've grown to get to that part, and it's been very, very helpful for me, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like ultimately you've learned to trust your own resilience. You actually trust that even if it does, you can overcome that. And at the same time too, you aren't going to need these, it's almost like a muscle that you've had to develop. You realize, I didn't die. I still was able to get past that, and these other outcomes that also provided the opportunity for these other amazing things to happen, and that made it work.
Yeah, and one being a single mom at a very young age, that was, I often think back on those times, and I'm like, nothing would be as hard as those moments. That was a very, very hard time in my life, but one that I think definitely did prepare me for the rest, where I'm like, oh, I can handle anything. I can do this. I can do this. I got this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine much being harder than that. Not that you don't experience the difficulty, but yeah, your body, you learned really early. I'm glad you're saying that. And I think a lot of people will benefit from hearing that too. We undervalue uh, the lessons you learned becoming a mother and the resilience you develop as a result of that. I always say, I wish we could put our children on our resumes. Like, this child survived to 8 years old. This child survived.
Yeah.
Like, an accomplishment in and of itself. They didn't die, and they're actually decent human beings.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the biggest accomplishment.
It is I always say this, and I entirely believe this. It is the hardest job in the world is to parent well, to be to be a mother, to be a father.
Yeah.
The hardest jobs in the world.
Making a baby's easy. Raising one is 24/7 forever. Yes, is the most demanding. It requires the most of your time, your energy, and your character.
Yep.
And if you don't have it before, it forces you to develop a little.
Yep.
Or they don't do well. They don't make it.
Oh, the kids call you out. The kids will let you know.
Yeah. They help you develop your character.
They let you know when you are slacking, when you are not being a nice person.
You didn't have character before. They clean that up real fast. Well, let's finish off with your fifth little nugget here. What has come about for you that just would have been a game changer when you were 23?
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit here and there throughout the conversation, but really giving myself grace has been hard at times, where allowing myself to, make mistakes, or, be stretched thin and say, I need time for myself, or I need to make me a priority at moments, and just giving myself that grace to really just be human and not perfect, and still be a good mom, and still be a good wife, and still be a good entrepreneur, and just really
someone else doesn't get to be the deciding factor on your humanity, because they don't see it all.
Yep.
Just to be so much more loving. That's a great place to take us home.
Yeah.
That's easier said than done.
I didn't even realize I was being so hard on myself until I had quite a few people tell me, don't be so hard on yourself. It's not like it's okay. And I needed to hear that, because I didn't know that I was, judging myself so harshly, or, not giving myself grace. It's like, I love myself, blah, blah, blah. Well,
tell me what that looks like.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for us to make it tangible. What does that look like for you now, that when, I'm sure you have those moments where you catch yourself and you're like, I'm just beating myself up. But when you're able to give yourself that grace, how does it look now versus when you were younger, and the earlier expectations you had for yourself? And
yeah, I think trying to just do everything all at once. And if I couldn't, I felt miserable. I would feel really bad internally about, well, you should have planned your day this way. You should have been more organized. Where I really needed to take a step back and say, okay, what did you do today? And that within itself is an accomplishment, and good for you. Bravo. Round of applause for you, because you showed up today and you did the things. Maybe you didn't do all the things, but you did as much as you possibly physically could. And that is an accomplishment. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's big. And yeah. So just giving yourself permission to not be all the things all the time, doing all the things all the time, wearing all the hats all the time, to say, this is, sometimes my dial is going to move like this. Sometimes I'll move like this. Some days are going to be different. And kind of managing your expectations, but also on the back end, forgiving yourself for your humanity.
Yep. Yep.
And only being one person and that being wonderful, not just acceptable. It's already wonderful.
Yeah. It is also tied to being honest with myself, right? And then being honest with others on their expectation of me to show up for all of the things that needs to be tapered a bit. So I'm fine now saying I can't make that event, or, I'll try, because maybe I will try. It may or may not happen, but I will try. And setting the expectation that I'm not going to spread myself thin as I had in the past. I had tried to really just spread myself way too thin. And, sometimes, especially with kids, they don't care. They don't want to hear it.
Oh, you're sick today, Mom.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. The kids are, they're the ones that will hold us accountable 1,000%. And, even when
which is also why sometimes they become the priority and other things have to be put on hold, and that's exactly where it should be.
Yep. Especially during where I really, really didn't give myself any grace at all was both my first and second pregnancies. And after, the initial postpartum, I had really bad postpartum each time. And I thought with the second one, it would be a little bit easier because I was at a different place in my life. I was married, I had my career, it should have been easier on paper, but emotionally and physically, it still was just as hard as the first one. And I did not give myself the time to just be still. That was a time in my life where I really did need to be still and enjoy that season of life of, his first year of maybe just committing fully to that. There was this idea that I had to just, again, do all the things. And I couldn't. I had this new baby that was stuck to my boob, and I had to, have meetings, and my website had to get redone. And, that
you're still trying to maintain that level of performance in those areas, as well as this other one that is all consuming.
Yep. That was a time I do look back on where I say, I really wish I could have been still for a moment, given myself much more grace. And I think it would have helped me to enjoy those moments a little bit more, as opposed to feeling stuck or just really, I was battling against the season of my life at that moment, where I really wish I had just leaned into it. And for me, that was hard. There's some friends that I have that they were able just to lean right in. They loved it. Their pregnancy was easy. This was their thing. That wasn't so much for me, although I love being a mom. I look back on the whole experience. I'm like, that just happens to be my experience. But it did teach me about needing to give myself more grace at times where I don't feel as comfortable, or times when it's a struggle. It's a real struggle, and it goes against who or what I think I am or what I'm supposed to be doing. It's no, life said at that moment, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be mothering at this very moment, and it's okay. You don't have to be doing all the other things. Yeah.
I think so many people, so many of our listeners are going to relate to that. And I love that permission to really, again, be quiet and still with yourself and listen to what you're really needing. And sometimes that means acknowledging your stage of life, the season you're in, where your attention is needed, where your heart is at that moment. And it doesn't mean letting go of those other aspirations or those other ambitions. And I think you and I have talked many times about the idea that balance is a, pipe at all.
Yep.
Maybe for an 18-year-old. But the idea that that permission to recognize when you're in that period and stage of your life, especially new moms out there, if they're trying to date or if they're trying to start a business, where are you actually at, and can this be okay? Because it won't be this forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so slowing down or pausing on one thing does not mean you're letting it go. it means you're acknowledging what you can do and acknowledging the value and really enjoying and leaning into where you're at right now, which will serve that future version of you later. It will show up. It will serve you.
It will.
As opposed to fighting yourself all the time to make all these other things work, or to make these things work for other people and to meet others' expectations and needs, or whatever this bar is that you've decided is where you should be, to be able to just give yourself that grace and permission to be right where you're at, and to have those priorities and to triage those values a bit. So that's so big. I'm getting a call now. But this is actually a perfect time for us to bring this podcast to an end. But I have to say thank you so much, Gina, for being on the show. Oh my gosh, everything you said gave me chills, and some of it feels obvious, but I think it's so important that we can talk about these things because there's so much nuance in it, and it can apply to everyone's lives in little different ways. And so I'm really glad we were able to dive into some of these things that, when you are juggling all these different roles, comes up about what matters to you and what you value and how you navigate all of these demands and all these challenges. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love having these discussions. I have them with girlfriends all the time. So I feel like, women at all different stages, and, men too, everyone's going through stuff. And nowadays the conversations, should be had. We know more, we should be talking about it more. And I'm thrilled,
to normalize, to normalize that this is okay. And it doesn't mean that you're failing, or that you're not keeping up or falling behind or less in any kind of way. That some of this is just a part of what it means to be human, and to normalize some of that for even those who are successful and those who are on paper achieving these things and have these lives and have the family and have it all. That it's messy,
right?
It's messy behind the scenes, and it's not clean, and it doesn't look Instagram friendly. So, I think that's so important. So you can find Gina at My Cheeky Curls on Instagram and Facebook, and at The Cheeky Curls on TikTok for some awesome tips on how to up your curly hair game. And my friends, you have to see how this woman can transform curls. It is amazing. She's got super cool videos of many different people and different hairstyles and what all her products can do with them. And you can also buy her products on cheekycurls.com. Keep an eye out, because you've got sales going on all the time, especially around holidays, I believe.
Yep.
Keep an eye out. She has amazing deals, amazing shipping deals, and sampler packs that you send out if somebody just wants to try out your products first. It's all super clean products. And again, thank you all for listening. I'm Lindsay Burke, and you can follow me at Lift Therapy. I look forward to connecting with you all again next time. Bye.
I hope that episode was helpful. Hey, listen, if you want to share your singlehood journey, if you've gone somewhere and come back, if you have revelations and wisdom, please share your story. It's going to help other people. Nothing makes us feel more connected than hearing other people's stories. So just send me the audio of your story, and you can just record it directly from your phone and email it to theangrytherapist@gmail.com. Also, if you want our Single on Purpose newsletter, go to singleonpurpose.life. That's singleonpurpose.life. You will get tools and articles and other people's stories, and also Zoom links to private gathers. So if you want to join our community, go to singleonpurpose.life. Thank you for listening. Be well. We hope you tell a friend. Hey, before you go, I want to invite you to the Single on Purpose private community online. It's off of social media. No ads, no algorithms. We got forums, we got live groups, we got webinars, and we have social hangs. We also have offline in-person hangs happening soon. So check us out. Go to singleonpurpose.life. That's singleonpurpose.life. and I will see you inside.